Well, hey, y'all, and welcome to the On Iowa podcast. I'm Leah Vann, the Iowa Hawkeye beat writer for the Cedar Rapids Gazette. And today I am joined by Mr. Jeff Johnson. He covered the Hawkeyes last fall and covers preps in the area and all kinds of other things. I'm still learning what my own coworkers do on the job. So, Jeff, how are you doing?
I'm good. How about you?
Oh, just making my way through another day. It's been chaotic, but I'm excited to have you on.
I hear you have a marathon you got to run, or you're going to run this weekend, huh?
Half marathon. I'm only half crazy.
Marathon. Okay.
Yeah, only half crazy, as they say. And I'm going to regret it. I'm going to regret it because it's at like 3 p.m. in the afternoon. I'll be driving in from Iowa City to Des Moines, and it's gonna be hot. In running terms, like hot is like anything above like 65, and it's supposed to be like 70. So I am hydrating with this like gallon.
There you go.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Trying to average like a gallon and a half to 2 gallons of water a day. It's a little crazy.
Don't over exert yourself. There's my only advice from the guy who doesn't run. So if you have to slow down.
Yeah. Anyway, so I wanted to have you on because you know about last year's team a lot more than I do. And we've got the NFL draft starting tomorrow. And so I wanted to know your takes on what you have seen as far as like the mock drafts go, or where you see some of these players ending up.
From what, everybody's got an opinion, right? So, and hardly any of them are right. Well, I shouldn't say that, but.
No, it's true.
It sounds like the consensus is Davian Nixon will be the first Iowa player to go. And I was just reading this morning some stuff, and it looks like people are thinking like third round for him.
Yeah.
And then, Amir Smith-Marset, I think, has done himself a lot of favors with his workouts and stuff here. So I'm pretty sure he'll go maybe like fifth round-ish, something like that. And Alaric Jackson, I think, will probably go right around that time frame as well. And then you're looking at Nick Neiman. What's going to happen with him, right? He's got his brother obviously has been an important player for the Kansas City Chiefs, so as a free agent. So you would think that would help him. I think they're similar type of players and high motor type of guys. So I don't know if he'll get drafted, but certainly he's going to get a shot as a free agent at worst. And, I like, Brandon Smith is always a guy that really has intrigued me just because of his size. He's got that size and, some athletic ability, some big play type of potential maybe to go with that. And, huge hands, which, obviously it always helps the receiver. So there's a guy that I don't know that necessarily will get drafted, but I think he's going to get a legit shot at an NFL team. And I've thought for a couple of years that, I think he's going to end up playing in the NFL someday. So, but again, I don't know much. So, but that, that I guess that's kind of the main people that I keep reading about. What do you think? I guess.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I guess, it's funny because when I looked this up last week, I looked up some mock drafts, some complete ones, because a lot of mock drafts are only like the first round. And the 3 complete ones I found were The Athletic, and I think it was Pro Football Network and CBS Sports. And they're all just like Davion Nixon went anywhere from the second round to the third round.
Yeah.
To either I think it was The Athletic said the Giants. I'm scrolling through right now. Pro Football Network said the Cleveland Browns. And then CBS Sports said the Detroit Lions. So, okay.
I had heard, or the thing I read this morning had him going to Houston. So there you go.
Right. So, okay, let's just put all NFL teams on the slate for Davion Nixon.
Yeah.
That's the thing about mock drafts. Like, I always think, especially when you get into those later rounds, like, how do you even, I don't know who does the research there, and how do you even find out? I mean, no one's making an accurate prediction, you know? And I
Right.
even saw like Mina Kimes joking around about it. I think Michael Oss sent me the little Twitter exchange Mina Kimes had with some people about late round wide receivers. And she was tweeting about Amir Smith-Marset. And she was like, oh, when he gets drafted, like all of us are gonna just lose our lose our cool. It's gonna be really fun.
Yeah, and I mean that's Leah, as you know, and I mean it's like why would what good does it do for teams to talk about people that guys are interested in, right? It doesn't you don't want anybody else to know what you're thinking, even past the first round. So it's just I love how everybody's an expert and has their opinions, and then you go through and seems like only Mel Kiper is the one that really gets it even close to right.
Yeah, I mean, and even he's usually off base. But what I did find intriguing was that Nick Neiman did make at least one draft, like one mock draft, and it was The Athletic. And I'm wondering, like, does the fact that he has a brother in the NFL, does that add to his stock?
I would certainly think so, right? Because and he was undrafted, as well, and so I mean he had to work, that much harder to get a spot and to make a spot, and now he's been in the league for multiple years, and I mean it's a football family, obviously, with dad being a assistant coach at Iowa and a longtime assistant coach in college. So I mean they know the game inside and out, you would think, right? Both boys. So and he was kind of an unheralded type of guy, I thought, maybe at Iowa, but the intangibles certainly are there in many respects. And there's another guy I can definitely see, even if he doesn't get drafted, is maybe making an NFL roster at some point, in his career.
Yeah. Do you think any of these guys, like, what do you think if you had to go down the list, like Davion, Amir, Chauncey, Alaric, like, what do you think they bring to NFL team rosters specifically, just from what you have seen in the past year that you covered the team?
I think Nixon is just, incredible athleticism at a interior defensive position. Somebody who's, I think, overcome a lot of things, personally in his life with a learning disability and everything. And I mean, there's a kid that, it just improved, improved his stock just immeasurably and last season, and really came on as a player and showed why he was such a highly recruited guy that Alabama wanted, So I love that kid. I love his personality as well. Always smiling. Scratching. I think you're scratching the surface maybe of what he can become as well, just because it took him a little longer to quote unquote get it than maybe some other players. So I think he's got a ceiling, a pretty high ceiling. So I love what he could bring to the table in the interior defense. And I think you wrote something about Amir. I mean, there's a guy that big playability, right? I mean, somebody that can bust it for a long play pretty much at any time. And you're reading some stuff about how I think it was Myron Medcalf at ESPN tweeted out something about how he didn't think that maybe he was utilized as much as he should have been at Iowa from that standpoint, just because he has that kind of ability to bust a long play and things like that. So, don't forget the return stuff. I mean, he's got that on his background as well as he can be a return specialist, which is only going to help his stock. So I think it's been a while since Iowa's had a wide receiver in the NFL, and I think that streak's going to come to an end. And then you look at Alaric Jackson. I mean, Iowa and offensive lineman, right? They go hand in hand. So
pretty clutch.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, and there's a kid that came back this past season to play to improve himself and improve his stock, and he's got that requisite size on the outside there at tackle, and there's another guy that I think he could be a starter for an NFL team as he moves along. And so, and then I mentioned Neiman. I can see Neiman as like a special teams terror, if anything, there as well. So, this is fun. This is a fun part, right? We can all make our prognostications and see how we think people are going to fit and who they fit with. And now we'll sit back tomorrow, Friday and Saturday, and see who goes where, and then make some more predictions after that, I guess.
Yeah, some more, speculation and acting like we all know for the better, even though we truly don't.
Exactly.
Only people who know are the ones who are in the room. But I wanted to shift gears. I know you've been covering baseball, and I think that we probably should touch base on Iowa baseball. And I haven't really kept up with your coverage, but in a nutshell, what's going on with that team, and what's exciting about the future?
Well, they got off to a very slow start. The Big Ten made a late decision basically to play conference only games, no midweek, non-conference games, et cetera, et cetera. They started the season a couple weeks later than most every other Division I conference did. And then Iowa had a COVID outbreak, as practice was getting going there, that shut them down for almost a week as well. So, I mean, they had a slow start, and then they played what has turned out to be probably the best teams in the league right away, in like Nebraska and Michigan and teams like that. So all those factors kind of went together and led to a very slow start. They didn't hit much in the early going, but now, I mean, they've since I think they were 4 or 5 games under 500. I mean, they've just really turned it on. They're starting to hit. They have a good lineup, really 1 through 9. Starting pitching is kind of evolved as well. They've got a couple of guys and like Trenton Wallace and Cam Bauman, who have really solidified the starting rotation for them. And they've got 3-4 guys out of the bullpen that have done a nice job. And they've just really turned it around, and they're playing as good a baseball as anybody in the Big Ten right now. And Rick Heller, the coach, is as good a coach as there is in the Big Ten. There's no question about that. He's really come in and, kind of changed the culture and the expectation levels. And, this is a team that certainly right now, I think will make an NCAA regional and, could be pretty dangerous, once they get there.
Yeah. And from what I understand, they play Indiana next, right?
Yeah. Indiana for 3. And that's huge because Indiana's right there. I think second in the conference behind Nebraska, who Iowa's already played. So, I mean, if you can win even 2 out of 3, I mean, you're gaining on Indiana. In the conference, there's no conference tournament this year. So, I mean, there's a lot of things, that every game's so important because of that. How good's the Big Ten? I mean, that's a huge question because there's no non-conference games. They're not playing any. They haven't played anybody from the Pac-10 or the Pac-12 or the SEC or ACC or anybody like that. So no one really knows how good the Big Ten is. No tournament. I mean, it just puts that much more importance on every single, regular season game here. We've got about a month left. So Iowa's in a good spot, but certainly needs to keep winning.
Yeah, I was going to say those non-conference games in baseball really give you the context as to how good a team might be. I know that Texas baseball, we always like get hyped, and then all of a sudden they'll play like an SEC team. You're like, oh no, like all the SEC teams are kind of what I picture to be like kind of the baseball, like bread and butter, I guess, when it comes to college baseball, and that's just who I end up seeing and stuff like that. So I don't know if you have any awareness as to what other baseball teams out there are like really the ones to watch this year or not.
Yeah, it's what's really cool to me is that you look at, I think, two of the top 10 teams right now in the nation are like Louisville and TCU, and they have Cedar Rapids kids playing for them, which is really, to me, very cool. Austin Krob has turned into a great Big 12 conference caliber pitcher at TCU. He went to Kirkwood for a year and then started getting big time offers and decided that's where he wanted to go. And then, Louisville, there's a couple of Cedar Rapids kids playing outfield for him, and Trey Leonard and, Levi Usher from Wash and Prairie, respectively. So it's pretty cool when you see, kids from little old Cedar Rapids playing big time college baseball, at these major powers, the top programs in the country that win year in and year out and are legit national championship caliber, programs.
Well, and when I covered baseball, I covered high school baseball up in Mason City, and then I covered Nyack baseball, which is really one of those places that cooks up a bunch of good players and spits them out to like TCU and stuff. And I saw some kids from Fort Worth, even my neck of the woods, traveling all the way up to Nyack only to come back to play for TCU just to up their levels. So I don't know. I've always found the baseball atmosphere in Iowa to be super interesting, especially for a state that doesn't have its own pro team. I don't know.
Yeah, and the high schools play summer seasons. The only state that plays the summer season, doesn't play in the spring, which is, I think it hurts the kids, but not as much as you used to, because everybody's so visible now. All they got to do is put together a video package and send it out to people. And Perfect Game USA, the renowned baseball club. Scouting service is based here and was started here, and they've helped immensely. And there's other programs like PBR of Iowa is another good program that promotes kids, and Dugout Sports out in Fairfax does a great job as well. And they house all the local kids, the area kids, in the off season, that are in pro ball for workouts and stuff. They have a really nice facility out there. So people like Mitch Keller of Cedar Rapids, who's a starting pitcher for the Pirates, that's where he works out in the off season. And it's become a nice club where all these guys have a chance to work out. And, that's great. That's great.
Yeah. Well, and before we get to summer, we've got I know there's minor league baseball coming up in the area. I'm super stoked. We got high school baseball, we got summer college baseball, all that. Before all that, this Saturday, we have spring football, last open practice, last taste of this team that we get to see before we dive into the fall season. Obviously, you covered this team last season. So I'm wondering what you are interested in as somebody who reported on this team. What do you think Iowa needs to do to fix? Are there parts of this team that you think Iowa needs to work on?
Defensive line comes to mind first, maybe both lines, honestly. Because I look at this team and it's as good as there is, I think, when it comes to the defensive secondary, with all the guys coming back and all the experience at corner and safety and, the hybrid corner safety position, the cash, as they call it, a position at Iowa. The linebackers, I think, are going to be tremendous. Look for Jack Campbell to have an all Big Ten conference season, for instance, in my opinion. But, you look at who's the only guy up front returning is Zach Van Valkenburg. So I was going to have to figure out or piece together a defensive line, and then, offensive line too. I mean, you're losing some guys. So you do have the huge advantage of probably the best center in the country, and Tyler Linderbaum up there. But how are those pieces going to fit around him at the guards and the tackles? I mean, there is quite a bit of experience, when you look at like a Kyler Schott and, Cody Ince, guys that played last season on the outside. So, I mean, the pieces are there, but I just, they just need to fit together and become cohesive. So that's really my big thing. And, wide receiver obviously is a question mark, with losing Smith and Smith Marset. I mean, there are some guys there that have experience, but is there somebody that's going to step up and play on the outside with like Nico Reganey and guys like that? So, I mean, that's it. I think this team's got a lot of good returning pieces coming back, and it's going to be a really good team. I can't wait for that Iowa State game. Boys, that could be fun.
Oh man,
I know we're not supposed to look that far ahead, but holy cow!
Oh man, I'm excited. I mean,
yeah,
it'll be my second time at Jack Trice. First off, because I already went for Texas playing Iowa State. I believe that would have been back in 2017.
Okay.
Texas's quarterback was Shane Buechele, and we won. We won that game. I was there. I got super great seats, and it was a good time. So now I get to be in the press box, so that'll be different. But
I actually covered an Iowa State Texas game in Austin, so I've been
really.
Yes, and I remember they ferried all the media down on the field, a couple minutes before the game was over, and stood right next to Bevo for a while.
Oh yeah.
And then I looked down and noticed that I had stepped in some of Bevo's business, unfortunately. So that's always my indelible memory of covering a Texas game in Austin. But it was really hot that day.
Oh, it's always hot. It's always hot.
Right.
Football season, you'll have
snow.
Know. We play in 100-degree weather.
There you go.
It's the worst. Oh man, it's interesting that you said the defensive line was a source of concern. I know that like this defensive line has kind of been rebuilt every year for the past couple of years. So they seem to be used to rebuilding it. But I also know that the defensive line in the beginning of last season was not as good as it was towards the end. Is that true? Is that kind of what you saw with your eyes?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, who expected, for instance, again, we mentioned Davion Nixon, but who expected him to have the season he did, right? And how important was that to the defensive line in its development? And, then you had a guy like Chauncey Golston, who's always been a very solid player up front. What kind of leadership and quality play did he provide up there last year? So, I mean, they had some guys really step up and play, and that's what they're going to need. Here, I mean, but there's a number of names, guys that have a lot of experience, albeit limited in a limited type of way. But I mean, if they can find a guy or two, to kind of play even remotely close to what Nixon and Golston did, I think they'll be fine. But so that's, to me, that's really the biggest key for this team is the upfront, especially on the defensive side. Moving forward, you got to stop the run, right?
Yeah. I want to look at the offensive side. You mentioned Nico Reganey, Tyrone Tracy as probably the two guys that are probably going to take that wide receiver part. I'm not so much as like concerned about the wide receivers though. I feel like Kelton Copeland has kind of built that unit into having a plethora of options, especially if, one of those top two don't work out. Keegan Johnson is the name that comes to mind, Darlin Bruce, all these new guys. But I was more concerned about the tight end position because there's like a ton of guys who literally have not seen the field at all. And, you get Sam Laporta, clutch. Okay, we've got that spot pretty much nailed. But, you need more than one guy to kind of play that position, especially in an offense like Iowa's. So
Yeah.
I don't know, what did you see that as a source of concern, or is this something that's kind of you're also used to being on the Iowa beat?
Yeah, it's just tight end just never really seems to be much of a concern. And you mentioned Laporta, but you're right. And you don't want to think negatively and say, oh man, what if he gets hurt? But what if he gets hurt? I mean, who's going to step up? But I think you got names there. I think Luke Lachey is a guy that's got an opportunity to be a really big time tight end for them, and that's they'll play a lot of two tight end sets. So I think you'll see him and Laporta doing a lot of two tight end sets together. And while I'm thinking of it, we forgot when we talked about NFL prospects, let's see what Sean Beyer does at tight end, the Cedar Rapids Kennedy prep. Totally forgot about him. I mean, Iowa and tight ends, they go together perfectly too. So he's going to get a shot, even if he doesn't get drafted, to show what he can do. So go do your thing, Sean. Great kid. Great kid.
Yeah. He was a little shy in the press conference, or maybe just not a talker. I can tell. Kind of your usual like Iowa guy, does not talk much and wants to show by example. But yeah, I think he was also, Pro Football Network was really hot on him and said that like he was probably one of the top 3 tight end prospects in this draft, which I don't know if that's ambitious or not. But he could be one of those guys that, ends up in free agency, works his way up and just ends up on a roster and killing it, the classic Iowa story.
No, exactly. And he played his best football by far last year, and kind of in the shadow, in a sense, I guess, of Laporta, because he played so well. But, Sean really gave him another weapon, and he's a good blocker. So, yeah, I totally can see a kid like that, hooking on to, at the very least, like it's, what the practice squad and maybe working his way up as we go along there. So.
Well, and blocking is super important too at the tight end position in the NFL, especially. It's more so important than it would be in college, I think, too. And I think I know that this is tight end U, which is why, because the first time I went to an Iowa football media day back when I was working at the Globe Gazette, I picked up a roster and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. What do you need 15 tight ends for? And everybody was like, like up here, we play farm boy football, like pro style offense. And I was like, 15. We get 4 at Texas. And there's one that I think just entered the transfer portal yesterday because he's like, I'm not going to get any playing time. And it's true. Like, I would too if I were him, but he's a really good tight end. I was like, well, maybe Iowa will pick him up. But like, it just seems like there was a never ending like list of tight ends. And then I pick up the roster this year and there's like 8, which I consider to not be very many for Iowa. And then I'm going through the names and I'm like, well, at least maybe 1 or 2 of them have seen some time on the field. Like Luke Lachey looked great during the spring practice last week. And, but when you look further down the roster and you've got like Bryce Schulte, I guess he's played a little bit in 2018 and 2020 and not a lot. And then you've got Josiah, Elijah, Jackson, Tommy. I'm like reading these names off of the story I wrote, and literally none of them have played. So I'm interested to know if any of them will play in this spring game on Saturday, and if we'll see, kind of the next men that are going to come up through the roots. I don't know. Like I said, I guess it looks like Luke Lachey will be that number 2 guy, but I'm even looking for the number 3 guy. Right? It's tight end U.
Yeah, no, exactly. So in Mason City, did you come across Miguel Recinos?
I did. I wrote about Miguel Recinos several times.
Did you?
Yeah.
There's another great kid.
He's great. He was so fun to write about because he actually he talks. I love kids who talk.
Exactly.
And I guess that's a kicker thing because kickers don't get the opportunity to talk very often because they're the kickers.
Yeah. Right. And you mentioned special teams that way for Iowa. I mean, they're pretty set, right? They have all Big Ten punter coming back, and I think Caleb Shudak's going to just step right in where, Keith Duncan left off. And quite frankly, I think Caleb's got a little bit stronger leg than Keith did. So his decision to come back and play, I thought was huge for Iowa because, I think I was not really going to, I don't think kicker's a question mark. Let's put it that way.
I think he nailed a 51-yard field goal in the last practice, and then he missed the second one. And I think we all kind of brushed over the fact that he made a 51-yard field goal in the practice, which is, it's huge. I mean, and I know it's practice, but it's good to know that like he's got that strength, he's got that accuracy. And I think it's endearing that he came back because it seems like, he could have left, and he had to play behind Keith Duncan. And I don't know. It seems like he's been waiting for this opportunity, and he thought that maybe if I were him, I would think that I wasn't going to get it. And then you had to literally wait until the younger guy left,
No, exactly. And I mean, he's shown he's got a strong leg with kickoffs, and, maybe, he's probably got his designs maybe on some sort of pro career moving forward too. So, I mean, this is his chance to show it, and he wouldn't have had a chance to show it, obviously, if he wouldn't have decided to come back. So good on him, definitely, for doing that. I mean, I don't know how many kids would have come back one more year in his situation. So
yeah. And I would be remiss if I didn't discuss the quarterback situation, even though I don't think there really is a situation. That's my suspicion. But everybody wants there to be a situation when it comes to the quarterback situation. So I don't know if what you saw last year gives you any intel on this situation, but do we think we're going to see Spencer Petras starting for the Hawkeyes this fall? That's the bottom line question.
Absolutely. 99%, in my opinion. I mean, that's just, it would be so unlike Kirk Ferentz, Brian Ferentz, and the coaching staff to pull the plug on a quarterback in this situation. I mean, Petras is their guy, and it's nice to have options behind him. What do they always say, Leah? It's like every fan's favorite quarterback is the backup quarterback, right? So yep. I think that's, everybody's heard a lot about Deuce Hogan since he's been recruited, and Padilla's done a nice job in a backup role, but I think this is Spencer Petras' team, no question about it. Encouraged by his improvement, down the stretch of the season, because, I mean, quite frankly, he spent, a lot of that season where you didn't really see a whole lot of improvement out of him, errant throws and, happy feet in the pocket at times, and not reading the field as well. As maybe you'd like him to, but I think he's their guy, no question about it. I think the team believes that he's their guy as well, and that's obviously so important as well. So, yeah, I'd be stunned, barring some sort of unforeseen injury, that if he's not the guy behind, taking snaps from Tyler Linderbaum once fall rolls around here.
Yeah, and that's my suspicion too. And I also think it's very telling when every player talks about him as that's my quarterback. They're not saying, oh yeah, my boy Alex, like, no, my boy Spencer, right? Like, and I think that means more than we can see with, the untrained eye, I think, is that leadership role. And, it would be also a big gamble to switch up the leaders going into this season, I think, because you said, here's the starting guy you had for, a season in which you only had 2 losses, right? And there was a bowl game berth. We never got to see the bowl game, but here's this guy that we told you is going to be leading the team for a year. Oh, next year we're going to change the leader. Like,
right,
exactly. I think the situation would have to be pretty egregious for Spencer Petras to not be the starting quarterback. And I think, last practice, there were lots of like good moments and bad moments for the open practice for actually all 3 quarterbacks. And then the other quarterback, the 4th quarterback, who's not on scholarship. But like for me, I remember I was watching Padilla for a few minutes, and he looked like a deer in the headlights a little bit until he kind of settled in. And then all of a sudden, he had like some good throws. And then I think he's a little bit better on his feet compared to Spencer. just as far as like being able to make a play out of nothing, right?
Right.
Or what could be nothing. But then I was like, I'm not super encouraged by this Padilla guy taking over that starting spot. Like he would really, really have to impress me. And I think the Deuce Hogan situation is the same. And we can also wait, right? Like Iowa can wait on those two guys. Like they have a limited time left with Petrus. So why don't you ride the leader that you know?
Yeah, and everybody, I mean, he didn't have a spring practice last year. How tough is that? When you're a first year starting quarterback and you don't have the spring to go through and, to work on everything and to work with the offense. So, I mean, that he was put behind a pretty big 8-ball, I think, with that. And, he did what he could. And again, just encouraged with the last 2-3 games, whatever it was, where he started. It just looked like he started to develop some confidence and, was more accurate and was making better reads and things like that. So I'd be very surprised if he doesn't, really improve this season and become a very good quarterback for them. I really would be surprised if that doesn't happen. So.
Yeah, I agree. But we'll have to see. Only time will tell. Can't wait for fall. Yeah.
Let's enjoy the summer first, though, huh?
Yeah. I mean, I got to go to one of these Cedar Rapids Kernels games. I want to get one of those hats. I just want a hat with like the little corn on it.
Oh, yeah.
All my friends from Texas were like, you have to get one of these hats. It'd be the most like aggressively Iowan thing ever. And I was like, I'm all about it.
No, it should be a good summer. It's, you really missed it last season. I mean, obviously we had a lot of other bigger pressing things to worry about, but I mean, you really missed it. Thankfully, Cedar Rapids wasn't affected by the whole diminishing in the minor leagues. I think there was some question about that at some point, and we still have a team. It's still affiliated with the Minnesota Twins. We know it's going to be here for another 10 years, and they're up a level from low A to high A. So should be theoretically a little higher quality of baseball too. So let's do it. Let's go.
Will it be a higher quality baseball or not? Because it is the Twins.
Oh, okay. I see where you're going now. So you've been influenced by my Twitter friends a little bit too much here.
Yeah. So apparently there are probably quite a few incoming freshmen at Iowa that weren't even alive the last time the Twins won a postseason game. Is that true?
That's accurate. That's accurate. How can you defend not having won a playoff game since 2002, I think it is. So I got nothing for that. Nothing. Nothing.
Yeah.
Other than, I could point out that, how long has it been since the Cowboys were relevant in the NFL?
A long time. At least I'm a cynical fan. Like, I mean, I guess I do have hope every year, but I mean, I don't know, at this point, I just kind of own it, right? You just kind of, you take your losses and you own it, right? Like, yeah. I mean, maybe I should just accept what I did with the Rangers a long time ago, which is like, this is not a good team. But the problem is Texas is a football state. We don't claim to be a baseball state. Well, I mean, the Astros maybe, but they cheat. They had to cheat to win. So they're pretty much, nobody cares at this point. They're still not a baseball state. It is a football state, but it is more so a high school football state at this point, and not really anything else as far as football,
Well, I have a question for you. We're obviously you're big time Cowboys and UT fan. So does one come above the other? Are they equal when it comes to football that way? Texas and the Cowboys, or
you could say, I mean, it's always funny because people are always like asking me, what's your favorite, NFL or college? And I like both equally.
Okay.
And I think and the Cowboys I've definitely been a fan of longer than I have been a fan of the Texas Longhorns. But I will say it feels a little bit more personal to be connected to the Texas Longhorns because I went to school there, right? And I went to every single game there while I was an undergrad, even a couple of away games. So, I saw some of those players, walking around campus. So it feels a little bit more personally attached to the Longhorns. But then again, the Cowboys, I've been to a couple games. Obviously, it's a lot more expensive, right? But, I have a personal connection to them too. Like, they were my Make-A-Wish. I got to meet them in 2012 from the Make-A-Wish. And then I got to shadow some Cowboys reporters. So I was back at the Cowboys practice facilities, or newer ones up in Frisco, a couple of years back, right before I got my job in Mason City. So, I don't know. I don't think one comes before the other, but there are certainly years where the Cowboys have a little bit of a better time than the Longhorns, or vice versa. And so then I kind of like, that's okay. If the Longhorns lost today, at least have the Cowboys on Sunday. Or if the Cowboys lost today, it's because it's okay, only because the Longhorns won, and I can't have it all,
And you paid a lot of more money to the University of Texas than you ever have the Cowboys. So
this is true. If I paid a lot more
literal
money,
skin in the game.
Yeah, if I paid a lot more money to the Cowboys, it'd probably be sad. Like really freaking sad. Like, oh no. I mean, I guess I don't know how much season tickets are, but my guess is it's more than the cost of tuition for a year at Texas.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Jeff, I appreciate you coming on the On Iowa
Thank
podcast.
You, Leah.
And we can can you tell people where they can follow you on Twitter if they don't already?
Sure. Since there's 1,020,000 Jeff Johnsons out there, my Twitter handle is JEJE66. 66 is my birth year, in case anybody ever wondered about that. But so that's where they can follow me. Anything you got story-wise, anything you want to talk about, any grievances, I'm here. So.
Yeah, especially the grievances.
Right. You'll get used to that as the Iowa beat writer as you go along here. So.
I'm already getting messages. People already ask me about basketball. I do not cover basketball. I'm going to say that formally on this podcast. Once again, I do not cover basketball. Please do not ask me about Jordan Bohannon. Please do not ask me about Luka Garza. I've never spoken with them in my life. So
there you go. You're doing great work. Keep it up.
All righty. Well, thank y'all for coming, and we'll talk to y'all next time.